Hello and welcome to Byju's IAS. Let's get started and look into the first article. The first article says partial relief. This is in reference to the AGR dues which some of the telecom companies will have to pay to the government of India. Before we understand what this article is all about, let's understand a bit of a background. Back in the 1990s, what we have is a major reform when it comes to the Indian economy, and that is the LPG. So, what is this LPG? Liberalization, privatization, and globalization. The permit raj, the license raj, and the government interference was comparatively reduced, and what we have is multiple sectors opening up to the private entrepreneurship. After this was initiated in 1990s, telecom companies were no exception to it. That is why the government of India introduced what is called as the National Telecom Policy in 1994. This National Telecom Policy in 1994 gave licenses in accordance to the Indian Telegraph Act of 1885. So what are these licenses? We have what is called as the spectrum. What is the spectrum? This is nothing but the long range radio waves. Since this is a public asset which is owned by the government, which will be taken by the private. So because the private is taking some public asset, they have to pay certain fees. This fees is what is called as fees for the licenses. This was what is called as the fixed annual fee for all the licenses taken by the private company from the government. But initially, when this fixed annual license fee was introduced, it was high. So it was so high that these companies, the private companies, started facing losses. Why? Because they were just raising up. They had initially started. They were in a nascent state of 1990s. So the companies faced a lot of losses as well. This is when the government realized that they have to come up with an alternative model. So this alternative model was introduced in the year 1999, which announced the National Telecom Policy, which gave these companies an option to migrate to revenue sharing fee. Now let's understand what is this revenue sharing fee. Initially, what they had was the fixed model. So the government said that all you companies, in case you're taking the license for the use of spectrum, you have to pay one particular fees that is fixed. But after 1999, they came up with a model which is called as the revenue sharing fee. So what is this revenue sharing fee? Every company generates certain revenue. Out of this revenue, they have to pay certain percentage to the government of India. That is what is called as revenue sharing fee. So initially the government came up with a proposal where about 15% of the AGR was fixed on license fee, and later it was reduced to 13%, and finally it was 8% in the year 2013. So what is this AGR is what we have to understand. That is nothing but the adjusted gross revenue. What is this adjusted gross revenue? This can be divided into spectrum usage charges and licensing fees, which is pegged to 3.5% of the spectrum charges and about 8% on the licensing fee. So what is this adjusted gross revenue? Basically, this is nothing but the gross revenue of telecom companies after adjusting all the discounts given by the government. They are supposed to pay a percentage of this gross revenue as spectrum fee and also as the license fee. Now the question is, what is this revenue has to be understood. So accordingly, you have two definitions. One is the definition given by the Department of Telecommunication, which represents the government. The other is with respect to the private companies. According to the Department of Telecommunication, they say that calculation should incorporate all revenues earned by the telecom company, including the non-telecom services. There is two types of services. One is what is called as telecom services. The other is called as the non-telecom services. What is this non-telecom sources? This basically includes, let's say for example, the company has deposited certain money. It is also earning some interest, or it happens to sell some of its assets that is already present with the company. So it generates certain revenue. So according to DOPT, it includes both the telecom operations, that is revenue from the telecom operations, as well as the non-telecom services, which includes the sale of assets as well as deposit interest. But the companies had a different perspective about what this revenue is. According to the company, they wanted to make sure that only telecom services are considered and non-telecom services should be kept completely outside the purview. So what we have is the conflict between the Department of Telecommunication and the companies. So the companies are saying that they do not want to include the non-telecom services, which includes fixed assets, dividend, interest and miscellaneous income. But according to the Department of Telecommunication, they wanted to include the non-telecom sources as well. When this non-telecom services is included, it will be a huge loss for the company. Why? Because they will have to pay this money to the government of India as well. But then this is also advantage for the government. Why? Because they would be able to generate enough fee from this particular licensing. So this was a major conflict, and ultimately it goes to the court of law. Initially it goes to the tribunal and then ultimately goes to the Supreme Court of India. Back in 2005, an industry body called as Cellular Operators Association of India challenged the government's definition of AGR, with the Telecom Dispute Settlement and Appellate Tribunal ruling in favor of telcos in an order passed in 2015. Since there was a conflict, what should be the definition of this revenue? This goes to the tribunal, and the tribunal goes in favor of the private companies. Then it also goes to the Supreme Court of India as well. Why? Because the government of India was not ready to accept this particular order of the tribunal. So it heads to the Supreme Court of India, and the Supreme Court in 2019 upheld DOT's definition of AGR. So whatever the government spoke with reference to the definition of AGR was applied, and same was interpreted by the Supreme Court of India. Now what happens? All the companies like Airtel, Vodafone Idea, which had not previously paid all these adjusted gross revenue, had to pay nearly 1.4 lakh crores to the government of India. So what did the Supreme Court say? The Supreme Court clearly said that all the amount that you own to the government of India will have to be paid as soon as possible. And now what happens? We have the COVID-19. Companies are going under loss, and they were asking the government for some exceptions as well. Why? Because the amount was so huge that paying them within a considerable period of time would lead to losses, or it may have to lead to shutdown of the enterprises like Vodafone and Idea. The government did also appeal to the Supreme Court of India, and the Supreme Court of India did also look into this issue, and finally today it has ruled in favor of all these telecom companies. So what has the Supreme Court said? The Supreme Court has now allowed all these telecom operators to pay their AGR dues over a next 10-year period of time. So they owe about 1.4 lakh crore. So this 1.4 lakh crore for companies like Airtel, Vodafone and Idea was initially asked to pay immediately within 3 months, and now they can pay within a span of 10 years is what the Supreme Court of India has said. So what should the telecom companies do? They should be paying about 10% of the AGR dues that they owe to the government of India by March 2021, and the next installments can be done in the next 10 years after 2021. This order of the Supreme Court will now ease some pressure of all these telecom companies which had to pay their AGR dues to the government of India. So what will it do? It will ease some pressure of them, so they would be able to come up with new strategic plans, new updates, new strategies, so that they would be able to keep up their subscriber base and at the same time pay the government this due over a 10 period of time. So what is the relief? How is this order very important? Had this order not been given by the Supreme Court of India, there could have been a possibility where one of the service provider, Vodafone Idea, would have shut its business. When such a possibility occurs, what we will have is impacting millions of subscribers. How will it impact millions of subscribers? Let me give you a simple example. Let's say Jio currently has about 2 crore people as its subscriber. These are just hypothetical numbers, and let's say Airtel has about 1.5 crore subscribers. So the infrastructure that is currently there with these two important service providers is sufficient enough for subscribers who currently are within its bases. But all of a sudden, imagine you have the Vodafone and Idea, which has a subscriber capacity of about 1 crore people, and all these 1 crore people, because the business of Vodafone and Idea is shut, start moving towards Jio or they start moving towards Airtel. So what would happen? The infrastructure that is already present with Jio and Airtel will not be able to hold on to it, and ultimately people will become the sufferers. Why? Because of connectivity issue. Already we have issues with Airtel, which is not able to provide the network in multiple cities or in fact in houses as well. If the number of subscribers increase, whether the already existing infrastructure is able to cater to the additional subscribers is what needs to be thought of. And at the same time, what we also have to think is in terms of employment, is in terms of losses to the company, and ultimately people would have been the major sufferers. And apart from this, this could have also resulted in duopoly, where Jio and Airtel would be the only two major companies, and in the near future the customer choices which all these companies provide are barely minimal, and as a result in the near future they can enter into an agreement, and ultimately they can also raise the price charges. And who are the sufferers? It is the consumers who are taking the services from Airtel as well as Jio. What is the way forward? The government of India has already initiated what is called as the Digital India Mission. This Digital India Mission aims to break all the digital divide that is existing in the rural areas as well as in the urban areas. So what it requires is internet penetration, and all these mobile service providers, the internet service providers, the network service providers are Jio, Airtel and Vodafone when it comes to the mobile services. So in case the government of India has to break this digital divide through its Digital India Mission, it will require more cooperation from all these companies. So what should the government do? The government should establish an healthy and a vibrant policy, and it also has to make sure that pricing and monetizing is in sync with what the companies opt for. So there has to be a mutual consensus. Only when there is mutual consensus in the near future is when we would have a solid policy with respect to the telecom sector, is what this article all about. It is this that we have to understand with respect to this article. Now let's look into the next article. This article here is speaking about Novichok, which happens to be a nerve agent. Why is this article important? That is because we have an international convention called as the Chemical Weapons Convention, and all these chemicals are barred according to the Chemical Weapons Convention. In this particular backdrop, let us try and understand what is this Novichok and what are the implications when it is administered on any other person. First, we have to understand the development of Novichok. When it comes to the Cold War, we have the United States of America, we also have the Soviet Union. During the Cold War period, both these countries were aiming at coming up with weapons of mass destruction, whether it was nuclear missiles or it can also be the chemicals with respect to the mass destruction as well. So one such initiative taken by the government of Soviet Union back then under a code name was Foliant, and that was the development of the chemicals. One such chemical released under this code name of Foliant is what is called as Novichok in Russia, and that means it is a newcomer. Why is it called as newcomer? That is because this happened to be one of the first chemical weapon released by the Soviet Union. Therefore, this Novichok is nothing but a chemical weapon developed under the program of Foliant. As it was being developed initially, it was kept as a top secret. Why? That is because they did not want the NATO chemical detection equipment to discover this weapon that was initially developed by the Soviet Union. So this is nothing but a nerve agent which was developed by the Soviet Union. So now what we have to understand is what is this nerve agent? The nerve agent is nothing but all those chemicals that prevent the nervous system from operating optimally, from working properly, and this can also be fatal as well. Why? Because this can lead to paralysis, and ultimately all these agents when acted, they can act within few seconds and the entire body functions can be paralyzed immediately. What nerve agents can do to the body is what we have to look at. Basically, we will have convulsions, loss of consciousness, and can lead to coma when it comes to the brain, and pupils constrict when it comes to the eyes, and when it comes to the lungs, there is wheezing, shortness of breath, excessive fluid secretion. When it comes to the heart, initially high blood pressure, raised heart rate, low blood pressure, and decreased heart rate happens. When it comes to the digestive system, there is nausea and vomiting diarrhea as well. Then when it comes to the skin, there is profuse sweating, and finally this can also result in death, which can result because of asphyxiation or cardiac arrest as well. So basically what this nerve agent does, it arrests the entire body parts, the functioning of it, and ultimately leads to paralysis and death of that person. How is it used? While some Novichok agents are liquids, there are some which are solid, and these can be powdered as well. So how is it administered? It can be inhaled or it can be put on the skin as well, and it is absorbed by the skin, and it runs through the blood, and ultimately it heads to the nervous system. It stops working the nervous system, and ultimately resulting in paralysis. This is one such example of nerve agent. So kindly remember, Novichok is nothing but a nerve agent which is used by Soviet Union back then, and now it is being used by Russia. And we have other example of nerve agents as well, which were employed by multiple other countries. Iraq used them against the Kurdish residents in 1988. This is another example of nerve agent. Then we have in 1994 sarin, which happens to be another nerve agent. Attack took place at Matsumoto in Japan. Then in 2018, nerve agents used during an attack carried out in Syrian city of Douma as well. This sarin is nothing but another nerve agent like the Novichok. These are some of the other examples where these chemicals were employed by countries when it comes to its implementation. These have been some of the examples as to how countries have used all these nerve agents and chemicals in the past to achieve their own success when it comes to the warfare as well. Now when it comes to the Chemical Weapons Convention, India has ratified the Chemical Weapons Convention in the year 1996. Kindly remember, this can be very important for your preliminary examination. It is administered by the Organization for the Prohibition of Chemical Weapons. So what do they do? So this authority basically will regulate, monitor the development, production, processing, consumption, transfer, or use of all the toxic chemicals or precursors as specified under the Chemical Weapons Convention. With respect to India, we have the National Authority for Chemical Weapons Convention, which is an office in the Cabinet Secretariat of the Government of India, established by a resolution of the Cabinet initially and was later accorded a statutory status through Chemicals Weapon Convention Act of 2000, which will implement this Chemical Weapons Convention. So kindly remember all these facts. It can be very important for your preliminary examination. Now let's look into the next article. This article here is speaking about Assam well fire. What is this all about? What is the blowout? What has happened? What is the impact to this particular issue? Has been explained in one of our CNA videos. The link for the same will also be provided in our description box. What is the context of today's article? In spite of being in existence for nearly 100 days, they are not able to control this fire, and at the same time the Oil India Limited has been unsuccessful in controlling it. Experts who came from Singapore could not control the fire, and now the Commerce and Industry Minister of Assam, that is Chandra Mohan Potari, has said that well killing operation at Bagjan blowout site in Tinsukia district may take another 2 months for its control. In this particular backdrop, what we have to understand is why is that there are issues in controlling and what are the measures that will have to be taken in the near future. First, we have to understand that Assam is a region where there is annual floods. Because there is annual floods, these operations of controlling the fire had to be suspended. So the first major issue as to why they were not able to control this fire within a span of 100 days is because of annual floods that happened in the state of Assam. As we initially discussed, there were experts who had also come from Singapore and multiple other countries as well. They wanted to ensure that this blowout is controlled and the fire does not spread to another region. So what do? They come up and employ all their strategies. But then there was explosion all of a sudden in July as well. This also resulted in injuries to the foreign people, and this also resulted in unsuccessful attempt. Finally, we have the Oil India Limited, which is also supposed to control the operations. So this was to be conducted in two different stages. One was placing the crucial blowout preventer device on the wellhead. This happened to be a successful mission, but this also required injecting the mud at high pressure through the BOP device to kill or completely shut down the well. This became an unsuccessful attempt. Since all these attempts have been unsuccessful, the Oil India Limited is looking for options. So what is the current option? They're calling experts from Canada and they are on their way to Assam to kill the well so that this does not spread and this does not have an impact on the people living in this very region. What has been the impact because of this gas tragedy? Number of people are displaced from their homes. They have lost their properties, they have lost their agricultural field, they have lost their livelihood mechanisms, they have lost their jobs as well. In order to compensate them, an expert committee formed by the National Crime Tribunal recommended three categories of compensation. Rupees 25 lakh for those whose houses were completely destroyed, rupees 10 lakh for those severely damaged, and rupees 2.5 lakh for those moderately damaged. But people are not happy with this compensation. Why? That is because they feel the compensation given by the National Green Tribunal is comparatively less because they have lost literally everything when it comes to this gas tragedy. So what they are requesting is for more compensation from the government of Assam in this particular case. It is this that we have to understand with respect to this article. But for the entire analysis, a link for the same will also be provided under the description box. Now let's look into the next article. This article here is speaking about Special Marriage Act. As the very name denotes, it is special marriage. Why? Because the boy and a girl who wants to enter into the wedlock or they want to get married are from a different caste or from a different religion. So for all those people who are from different caste and religion, who do not want any types of rituals and customs, who still want to get married, to entertain them, what we have is the Special Marriage Act. Under this Special Marriage Act, there is a section. This particular section is section 5 and section 6 of the Special Marriage Act. According to a new plea that has been filed in the Supreme Court of India, they say that this is violating the privacy. Let's try and understand how it is violating their privacy. According to the plea, it states that there are provisions which require parties to marriage to publish their private details open for public scrutiny before 30 days of the intended marriage. Let's say there are a couple who want to get married, all their intricate data will have to be given to the government. This includes some of the private data which includes date of birth, age, occupation, parents name, detailed address of all those people, phone number, etc. So this is what is required, that is the private data, and this will be put up in a notice for a public scrutiny. The provisions also allow that anyone who has to submit certain objections to their marriage can object it, and at the same time this will also empower the marriage officer to inquire into such objections. So what is happening here? All the private data is collected and this is put out in a notice, and this notice will have all the private details. So this private details, when it is posted as a notice in a public office, this means there is a violation of the privacy. Why? Because all the intricate data is now put up in a public forum, and that is violating Article 21, says the first important plea when it comes to the Special Marriage Act. Then there are other issues as well. The petition also states that the requirement of the notice before the marriage is absent in the Hindu Marriage Act or in the customary laws of Islam. While it is not present in the Hindu Marriage Act or in the customary laws of Islam, it means there is violation of Article 14 as well. Article 14 is about equality. When it is not present in the Hindu Marriage Act, where you have to provide all these details, it is not present in the customary laws in Islam about giving all these details. Why have it in the Special Marriage Act is the second point given by this particular plea. And the third important factor is that this particular data, when given for 30 days, can be objected by anyone else. So it means that this particular data can go back to their parents as well. Their parents might be opposing their wedding as well, and in this particular juncture, what we also see is killing of the people in case they are from a different caste or from a different religion. So the plea is asking to remove this particular private details, that which is being shared by the public scrutiny before 30 days of marriage. So the plea here is asking the Supreme Court of India, since it is violating Article 21, since it is violating Article 14, it is also snatching away the life in case parents come to know and happen to kill them. So certain provisions and certain sections within this particular law have to be removed, and that is with respect to the public scrutiny before 30 days of intended marriage. So we will wait and watch what would happen in the Supreme Court of India, and once we have the judgment, we will take this article once again. Now let's look into the next article. This article here is speaking about the National Digital Health Mission. We have discussed about the National Digital Health Mission in the last 1 week. We have also spoken about the concerns with respect to the National Digital Health Mission. Under this article, there are again couple of points which can be taken as concerns with respect to the National Digital Health Mission. So what are these concerns? The first major concern is ensuring customization of a new software and changes in current practices of data maintenance. What do we mean by it? There are two types of hospitals. One is the government hospital, the other is the private hospital. Currently, when we speak about the government hospital, we do not have adequate number of computers. We do not have people who are keeping up all these data and statistics with respect to the patients. So what would happen with respect to the National Digital Health Mission is that there would be new software that will come up. This will also require data. This will also require internet, and this will also require people who will periodically update data with respect to that particular patient. So what would happen? There is increase of cost with respect to the National Digital Health Mission. Looking at this cost factor, we have to look at how the functioning of the government hospitals are. Currently, when you look at the government hospitals, there is deficiency of the doctors. There are not enough number of beds. There are multiple equipments which are missing, and what we also see is that hygienity in this particular region is not present. So why we have to make sure that there is hardware and internet that is required, and instead we can actually shoot up this expense on providing all other necessary infrastructure is the first key argument. Then we have the private hospitals as well. Number of private hospitals already have number of softwares. They are already running with softwares. So in case there is a new software built by the government of India, whether the existing software will run in parallel to it or this new software will impose the already existing software is another point that we have to look at. The third important factor is at the village level. Let's say there is a clinic. This clinic is a single doctor. This single doctor already has a very good rapport with respect to his patients. So this relationship does not require any type of data, computer and hardware. Why? Because there is mutual understanding. The number of patients who come are comparatively less, and the doctors would already know that patient by face value. So the minute he sees that particular patient, he would know what are the preconditions of that particular patient. Now, if there is a new software in the form of National Digital Health Mission, this will require software, this will require hardware, this will also require data operators as well. This will obviously mean there is increase of the cost, and this cost will be put up on the patients, and this will also increase the cost for the patients is the second argument. Then we have the issue of informed consent as well. The government of India has already said us that when it comes to the National Digital Health Mission, privacy will not be compromised, and in case there is any information that has to be taken by the doctor or with respect to the hospital, only the consent of the patient would be taken, and only then the data would be taken up by the hospital or the doctor. But what we have to focus is on informed consent. Majority of the people in the village areas do not even have idea about the informed consent as well. They might give their approval for their own data where they have no idea about it. Looking at all these concerns prevalent in the present infrastructure, the article goes on to say that there are already prevalent gaps that is existing in the health infrastructure. All these issues will have to be taken up by the government of India before initiating the National Digital Health Mission, says the authors of this article. But for the rest of the analysis, kindly look into our previous CNAs. This article here is speaking about should the age of marriage for women be raised to 21 years. An elaborate analysis of this article has been explained on 21st of August 2020 under the third topic, the marriage age misconception, at 8 minutes 19 seconds. The link for the same will also be provided in the description box. But there are some add-on points that are already given in this article. That is what we have to know with respect to this article. The Law Commission report of 2008 on reforming family law recommended a uniform age of marriage for boys and girls at 18 years, and it was not 21 years. The National Human Rights Commission in 2018 recommended that there should be a uniform age of marriage for both boys and girls. Laws such as Indian Majority Act of 1875 grant the right to vote and to enter any type of contracts for those who attain the age of 18. So when it comes to the entering the contract, the age is 18, and when it comes to the Indian Majority Act, it is 1875 says it is again 18. When it comes to voting, it is again 18. So why vary is this particular point. Even the Supreme Court in the independent thought case, when it looked at child marriage, said that it's accepted universally that a child is someone who is under the age of 18, and that should be the age of marriage as well. If we look at the international commitments, the Convention on the Elimination of All Forms of Discrimination Against Women, this committee also recommends 18 as the age of marriage. So for you to substantiate your answer, you can come up with all these queries and previous committee recommendations as well. But for the rest of the analysis, which is an elaborate one, kindly look into our 21st August 2020. Now let's look into some of the preliminary practice questions. With reference to Solid Waste Management Rules 2016, which of the following statements is or correct? The rules are applicable only to municipal areas and do not extend beyond urban agglomerations. No person should throw, burn or bury the solid waste generated by him on streets, open public spaces, outside his premises or in the drain or water bodies. Generator will have to pay user fee to waste collector and for spot fine for littering and non-segregation. Which of them are correct? The answer to this is 2 and 3 only. Why have we taken this practice question? Because of the reference given under this article. So kindly remember, the rules are now applicable beyond the municipal areas and can also be extended to census towns, notified industrial townships, areas under the control of Indian Railways, airports, airbase, port and harbour, defence establishment, special economic zones, state and central government organizations, places of pilgrims, religious and historical importance as well. So it is not only to the municipal areas, but it is also applicable outside the municipal areas as well. Now let's look into the next practice question. Consider the following statements with respect to Assam Rifles. It is the oldest paramilitary force of India. Assam Rifles is under the administrative and operational control of the Ministry of Home Affairs. Which of the above statements are correct? The answer to this is 1 only. Now let's look into the next practice question. Kangla Fort is in which state of India? Is it Manipur, Nagaland, Arunachal Pradesh or Assam? The answer to this is Manipur. Why have we taken these two practice questions? Because of the reference given under this article. So kindly remember, Assam Rifles is a central paramilitary force under the administrative control of Ministry of Home Affairs and operational control of the Army, that is the Ministry of Defence. Kangla Fort is one of the most important historic and archaeological site of Manipur, located in the heart of the Impal city. It served as the seat of Manipur's part till 1891. The literal meaning of Kangla is dry land and it is part of Meitei language. Now let's look into the next practice question. Which of the following statements is or correct with respect to National Nutrition Week? India marks National Nutrition Week annually on the first week of September. This event was launched by the Ministry of Health and Family Welfare. The answer to this is 1 only. Why? Because this event was not launched by Ministry of Health. Instead, it is the Ministry of Women and Child Development. Why have we taken this practice question? Because of the reference given under this article. So kindly remember, this event was launched by the Ministry of Women and Child Development in 1982 with an objective to raise awareness on the importance of nutrition for the human body. Now let's look into the next practice question. The Parliament of India exercises control over the functions of Council of Ministers through adjournment motion, question R and supplementary question. All the three options are right. So the answer to this is 1, 2 and 3. Why have we taken this practice question? Because of this article. But kindly remember, the whole article and an elaborate analysis of what is this question R, what are the issues and why is the government taking up such an issue has been discussed in our yesterday's CNA, so kindly look into it. Now let's look into the mains practice question. Enabling a pan-Indian digital ecosystem requires the government to look beyond the adjusted gross revenue issue and reimagine the way it prices and seeks to monetize the radio spectrum in the future. Discuss. Should the age of marriage for women be raised to 21? Critically analyze. So please write all your answers on the comment section. Peer review, come up with constructive criticism. This is it for today. Thank you for watching. All the best.